Good morning and welcome to Thursday's edition of the morning briefing. Yes, we are a little bit late. I'll take responsibility for that. I've got broad shoulders, so I'll take it. I'm joined by esteemed company today and Chris, Jack and Stevie Clifford. How are we, boys?
Not bad,
good. Yeah, good.
I think there's only really one place to start, and that's with Chris's exclusive story that broke the internet last night, and that was the news about Glen, Kamara and fashion Sakala. Chris, let's just start on Glen Kamara. The news was, I think there's 6 clubs interested. What is the latest with Glen?
We had the story, maybe 6-7 weeks ago, that Rangers were looking for a fee of about £5 million for Kamara. And I spoke to yourself and spoke to a couple of the boys on these shows, and we discussed whether that was a fair fee, whether Rangers were in the right ballpark. And I think the consensus seemed to be that was a realistic fee. It's not been a great 12-18 months for Glen Kamara, but at his best, I think he can still more than do a job. For a lot of very good clubs. I think, as Michael Beale has said, his time at Rangers is coming to an end. I think it's reached that kind of natural end alongside like some Morelos and Kent. It was time to move on. So there's 6 clubs interested, a couple in France, Lyon being one of them, Reims being the other, Galatasaray, Trabzonspor, Mönchengladbach and FC Copenhagen. So there's some interesting options there. And I think over the next 48, 72 hours, hopefully we'll see a bit of movement in that. I know Michael Beale addressed it last weekend after the Hoffenheim game that we were at Euan, and basically said, look, Glen's training himself, not part of the squad. He's been given a bit extra time off after the summer, but you didn't have to read too far between the lines to realise that Glen Kamara is not going to be part of Michael Beale's plans, and it will be moving on. And I think if Rangers could get £5.5 million for him, I think that represents a good bit of business and certainly a nice injection back into the club after what's been an expensive but exciting couple of weeks.
Yeah, no, that was a fantastic story to break. And some of the clubs are interested. It shows the player that Kamara can be at his best, the likes of Lyon and top club in France and things like that. Let's go to you, Stevie, on a kind of general assessment of Kamara. I mean, firstly, what do you make of the fee? That kind of rumored like £5 to £5.5 million. And secondly, how would you assess Kamara's time at Rangers? Because famously he came in for 50 grand, so Rangers only a huge profit on the player. He's had some unbelievable performances in Europe, but it kind of petered out, didn't it, really, for him last season?
Well, listen, Euan, I went to the petrol station this morning and filled the tank, and I'm willing to take Glen Kamara wherever he wants to go. £5.5 million is exceptional business for us if we can get that in the door. It represents, as you said, a huge chunk back of what we've spent this summer. I think that would be a fantastic price in business. Let's be brutally honest. Glen Kamara's checked out of Rangers a long time ago. I think his time at the club is over. And I've got no issues with that, incidentally. I think that certain things have happened while he's been here that add context to that. I feel kind of sorry for him in a way. But, 50 grand, return that, for £5.5 million is incredible business if that's how it turns out. So, how I would assess his overall time at Rangers would be a success. I think he hugely contributed to the league win season. He hugely contributed in Europe. But the last year or so, it's kind of fallen off the rails. So I just don't think his heart's in it anymore. I think that's showed by his performances as well. So I've got no issues, with that business. I've got no issues with selling him. I think it's at the right time. And I think it's good business for the club. So, good luck to him. Let's hope it comes to fruition over the next sort of couple of days, as Chris has said. So, I've got no issues with it. I think it represents good business for the club. And I think it's the right time. We've not done that before. And I think this represents the right time for the club to sell him on.
Yeah, I think that's a kind of general consensus, amongst the supporters. Neil saying there, he was a cracking player at his time, but, it's probably possibly the right time to kind of move him on this summer. And I think the fee that Chris is reported represents, good business. I think a lot of fans would be happy with that. 5.5 million. Chris, just in terms of a timeline, you think in the next maybe 2 to 3 days you'll see some movement on that?
That was certainly the feeling from the club and the people that was dealing with last night. I think it would make sense. There's obviously a key push at Rangers now to bring the size of that first team squad down. It must be sitting over the 30 mark by now. That's obviously completely unworkable from a Michael Beale perspective and from a board perspective in terms of the wages. So I think we've seen also a couple of players move on. You will see like Kamara. There's also been talk about John McLaughlin. There's talk about Scott Wright. Obviously, I'm assuming we'll come on to Fashion Sakala as well. So the focus now at Rangers, having done so much work over the last couple of weeks, done a lot of good work in terms of building the squad. I think it's now time to really focus on bringing that number down, addressing the kind of outlay in terms of the wages, getting some money back in fees. And if Rangers could start to do that over the next week or so, I think that would be the next phase of the transfer window until we then lead into the end and we see what else can be done in terms of incomings towards the end of the window as well.
Well, you segued brilliantly onto Fashion Sakala because that's what we're going to talk about next. On your piece, it was also about Kamara and Sakala. Sakala wasn't part of the travelling squad to Hoffenheim. Obviously, there was a sickness bug going around, and Michael Beale was quite coy about whether if Sakala was one of those players or whether he was kind of left behind due to an impending exit. Obviously, I don't think he was at the open training session at Ibrox the other day for the MyJers members, and Chris, it looks like he's on his way out as well.
And again, much like Kamara, I think it's the right time, and certainly it's the right fee. Rangers looking around about the £4 million mark for Sakala, which is a profit on what they got him in for. And I think in terms of what he's provided and what he's done in his Rangers career, £4 million is a good fee. I think that's a good bit of business. I feel sorry for him slightly, perhaps, because you look at his return in terms of goals and some of the moments. He does have flashes. He does have something there. But if you're going to be a Rangers team that wins cups and be a Rangers team that competes in Europe and more importantly be a Rangers team that wins the Premiership title, ultimately Sakala's not good enough because he doesn't provide often enough. There are those moments, there are those goals. He's also an infectious personality. Fans like him. He does tick a lot of boxes, but ultimately he's not good enough to be part of a Rangers attack that's going to win the Premiership this season. Whereas the guys that Michael Beale has brought in, you would think they're going to be an upgrade on him. The time will tell come the end of the season. If Lammers or Dessers or Danilo hasn't produced, people might say, "Oh, why did we get rid of Sakala?" There's people that still say, "Why did Daniel Candeias leave?" There's always going to be that side of the support. But I think this one ticks a lot of boxes for Rangers, and I can see why it's a deal that they're keen to do.
Yeah, Stevie, your car's full of petrol, and you're going to give Glen Kamara a ride to France. I don't know if you'd be able to give Fashion Sakala a ride to Saudi Arabia, but I mean, are you very much of the opinion that it's time for Sakala to go?
We discussed this, Derek and I, maybe about 4 weeks ago on this show, and I said it would probably take silly money for me to part with Fashion Sakala, and that was prior to Dessers, Danilo maybe coming in. And the silly money we mentioned at the time was £4 to £5 million, which I thought for Fashion Sakala was excellent business. If that's the kind of ballpark figure we're talking about, and you add that to Kamara, we're looking at almost £10 million in for these guys. I think that's incredibly good business for Rangers this summer. If you think about the outlay, we're thinking maybe around anywhere between 13 to 15 million they've spent this summer on fees alone. Then if we were to recoup, 3/4 of that for selling these two guys, then absolutely. I think that's really good business. When we spoke to the chairman a couple of months ago, he did say to the kind of journalists that were speaking to him that he felt that he could recoup and he could sell on a lot in the summer. And maybe we were looking at the other end of the spectrum and thinking, well, who's going to be the big Bassey type sale? But if we can get, these boys out the door and get that £10 million in, then I think that's incredibly good business. I'm like Chris, I do kind of feel sorry for Fashion Sakala because he will get numbers and he probably would provide you with 15 goals this season. But for every 15 goals that Fashion Sakala provides you, there's 2 open goal misses at Hampden, which is the absolute pinnacle where we needed him to score and the big moments. And he's not really done it. And I think those 2 moments, if we're honestly, brutally truthful, I think they may have sealed his fate at Rangers because I think the manager then looks at it and decides, is he top quality that we really need to go to the next level? or is he a squad type player? And unfortunately, I think he's a squad type player. And what also goes against fashion is the fact that I've seen people say, why don't we get rid of Matondo first? The unfortunate thing for Fashion Sakala is he's got suitors. People want him. People are willing to pay money for him, which automatically makes him a valuable kind of asset and makes him somebody that will move on. Whereas Matondo, I'm sure we would love to move on. And I get people's point when they say that. But maybe there isn't the suitors that Fashion Sakala has. So that's it's one of these ones that if you'd offered me nearly 10 million for Kamara and Sakala at the start of the window, I'm sorry, but I would have bitten your hand off for it. So yeah, I'm not sure I can drive him out to Saudi Arabia, but if that's where he ends up, I think he'll go with everybody's best wishes. And it goes back to something I said right at the very, very start of this summer, and people might remember it. People with good songs from the Rangers support are never really very good. You've got to stick to the plain old fashioned. There's only one Brian Laudrup, one Paul Gascoigne, that kind of stuff. Super Ali, away, away, away. The guys with the good songs are never good. That's my theory, and I'm sticking to it.
Keeping your fingers crossed there's not a good song emerges for Dingle then at Rugby Park on Saturday.
Yeah, just Super Dan or something will do for him. But I'm looking forward to seeing these guys up front. I do think, on final word on fashion, I genuinely do agree with Chris when he says he's been a bit unlucky in his time at Rangers, just by the fact that, he's had moments, but the big moments have kind of floated them by. And unfortunately for him, as I said, he's got a kind of value that teams are willing to pay. But Rangers business-wise, if you get that 10 million in, like Chris discussed, and then we move on maybe between anywhere 4 and 6 of the other kind of squad-based players, then I genuinely feel like we might be in a position then to revisit. Because maybe if you income anywhere between 10, 12 million, like was mentioned before, maybe we'll get that centre half we're all looking for. And I think we're a centre half away from being an excellent summer's business. So I don't know. I think we're doing all right. I think we're looking all right for where we are at this moment in time. But I would say excellent stories yesterday from Chris. I'm giving them till Monday, and if they're not both out, then he's getting a text.
No, it's nice to see you love in between you two this morning. It's bringing a tear to my eye. But it was 2 fantastic exclusives yesterday from Chris. And obviously, if you want to read them, they are on the Rangers Review website, so go and check them out for sure. Just lastly on Sakala, Chris, I mean, how far down the line do you believe that this is? I mean, there's obviously loads of reports and speculation, but I mean, you're the man with your ear to the ground on this one.
Again, like Kamara, not imminent in terms of what will happen over the next hours, maybe not happen over the next couple of days, but I think there's definitely work still to be done. Was the feeling on the deal last night, but I think it's one that will get done. As Stevie outlined there, he is a player that does have suitors. He is a player that does have talent. He's got attributes that other teams will be attracted to, that other managers will think they can get the best out of. So in terms of the guys that are looking to sell in that bracket, I think he's one that Rangers are certainly confident of moving on.
I think the manager said something interesting, Chris, as well last week, and Euan, it kind of struck a chord with me. And he said that when we go to name the European squad next week, meaning this week, he says, I think you'll start to see movement, and I think you'll start to players will maybe realise that they're not part of it, which was kind of how he outlined it. And what I took from that being, maybe there was 1 or 2 that had been told in the summer, you're not part of the plans, but quite rightly, he also mentioned they would bite down and try and fight for the position and stuff like that. Now, I'm completely speculating, but what I took from that is that maybe you'll find that guys like Sakala, possibly, because it's now came up, Kamara we knew about, these guys are not going to be involved in the European squad, and they're not going to get first-team football at Rangers. I think once the realisation of that becomes apparent, no European squad, things like that, then it will become pretty evident that if these guys want to play, they need to move on. So that's a wee bit of speculation on could that have been Fashion Sakala? Maybe it'll be a couple more of them that we'll see move out in the next few weeks. But I think, Chris, maybe once that happens, I think that's maybe the realisation for these guys that their time at Rangers is up.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I think you make an excellent point earlier, Stevie, as well, about the kind of 2 misses against Celtic. It really kind of frames the narrative around the player, doesn't it? It doesn't really matter if he scores, because his numbers under Beale were good last season. But I mean, everyone will remember him for those 2 misses against Celtic. And if you have a player who's more clinical and more efficient in front of goal, then maybe he finished the season with a trophy last year. So yeah, it's a good point. Guys, there's so many people watching this morning, so thanks for everyone who's tuning in and hitting the likes, and there's loads of comments coming in. We'll address them later in the show. Just in terms of this one, a press conference today or tomorrow, the answer is both. There's a player being put up today, and Michael Beale will speak to the media ahead of the Kilmarnock game tomorrow, so kind of stay tuned to the Rangers Review over the coming days for all the information. Upon that, I think maybe the logical place to go next while we're on transfers is Cifuentes. Either or, really, but I mean, we'll start with Chris. I mean, that's expected. I think he's in. I think you both mentioned yesterday on social media that he's in the city. So you'd expect that to be signed, sealed, and announced today or tomorrow.
It's just a case of whenever Rangers want to announce it, really. Now, whenever they've got a scarf looked out and the social media guys are finished with the videos and the Rangers TV stuff's done, that one's just in the hands of the club. I had a piece on Cifuentes this morning. Spoke to Keith Costigan, one of the Apple TV analysts and commentators out covering the MLS, and he spoke really well about him in terms of what he'll bring to the party at Rangers, and a real box to box midfielder. Can do the dirty side of it, can burst forward, and can get up the pitch. Look to try and add some goals to his game as well. So I think the fans have been quite excited about this one. It's taken a wee while to get it over the line. Had the agreement with him, and it was then just a case of getting the deal in place with LAFC. But they've finally got there. Next couple of days, I would assume it'll all be announced. I know the manager addressed it last week in terms of asked about where he can play at Kelly, and it was a case of, well, he's here for the long term. Let's just not go and throw him in at Rugby Park and then decide if he's any good or not. He is going to be a long term project. He's a good profile, he's a good age, a lot of good attributes. So I'm really excited to see what he's going to add to the squad, and where his career takes him, because a really interesting backstory, and also coming through his ranks in Ecuador, done really well at the Under-20 World Cup a couple of years ago, has established himself in MLS, bit of European interest. Rangers have got the deal done, so I think this could be a good one for us.
Yeah, once again, everyone go and check out Chris's piece on Cifuentes this morning. We'll have a couple of analysis pieces that we've done on Cifuentes that we'll put back out there once the deal is completed. Stevie, it sounds like your dog's a fan of Cifuentes. Are you also looking forward to his arrival? I mean, just what Chris mentioned there before we come to you, Stevie. He's not going to feature against Kilmarnock at the weekend. It looks like it'll be too late to kind of throw him in there. But I mean, what do you make of the signing?
Well, first of all, apologies. My window cleaner's here, and the dog has alerted me to that fact, just in case I'd missed the fact that he's right there. So she likes to tell me. But on Cifuentes, delighted it's here. He's finally, it's finally going to get done. As Chris says, it's in the hands of the club. Whenever that happens, it happens. Got told at the weekend and put it up that he was here midweek. He's arrived. So it's just a case of, as Chris said, the club putting that out. What type of player he is, we've discussed this a wee bit. I think he is what we miss, really. He's a ball carrier. He's powerful. He likes to play a key pass. He's going to be able to feed from the midfield. And he's one that really gains yards. Talked about this slightly at the live show. And Euan, I'm not one for my stats. That's more Josh and Adam and all these guys. But I picked up something on him that I quite liked. He gained over 1,000 yards in his game so far in the MLS this season, which is second only, I think, to Carlos Vela over in the States. So he's somebody that'll carry the ball, likes to run with it, can link the kind of midfield and attack quite well. And I think there's a potential that we maybe are going to play more narrow this year, and it's a type of player that we might need. I basically see him as a link between Raskin and most likely Lammers. So Ali seems to agree with that. So I think that's basically what type of player he's going to be in. I think he's going to be a strong player as well. He's quite well built. Like, he looks like he's going to be like quite a wee bulldog type player. So I quite like that. I think we missed that kind of tenaciousness in midfield. I'm not sure that Raskin can overly do everything in there. I think he's a cracking player, and I think he might get better with better players around him. Not that he's been bad, that's not, but I think he might excel even more because you'll be able to have that help and that quality in there. And if you can get that blend right, and there's now plenty of competition, you think about the 6 guys that are going to be that midfield: Cifuentes, Cantwell, Raskin, Jack, Lundstrom, Dowell. That's 6 very good options in terms of where we are. Now, I know there's been a wee bit over Lundstrom and stuff like that, but in terms of where we are, I think that's really good, and it's certainly good options for us.
No, completely agree, Stevie. You've got the window cleaner. I've actually got a joiner in at the moment, ready to do some work. I've had to let him in the house. I'm not being able to speak to him because I'm on the live video. So if you can hear me right now, Graham, I'll be with you very, very, very shortly. Just in terms of a couple of comments, we've got David Stone, who just became a new YouTube member. Obviously, you can sign up to our members pages. You'll get some, exclusive content there, 3 to 5 videos a week. Blown away by the amount of people who have done that. So thank you very much to everybody who has, and it's really appreciated. It helps us, run the channel and do things like sending me on a wild goose chase in Germany to get to Hoffenheim. And secondly, comment here from Aldo the Sniper. One of our members has gifted, Demo has gifted 2 memberships to other fans today, so that's massively appreciated. It's an incredible generosity, and we do appreciate it here at the Rangers Review. I suppose kind of talking about Cifuentes and the players that are coming in and out, it kind of takes us on to the weekend game against Kilmarnock. I think excitement is incredibly high among supporters ahead of the new season, as it always is. Optimism is high. Some fans, maybe it's been tempered a little bit by kind of pre-season results, but I wouldn't really read too much into that at all. Chris, in terms of going into Kilmarnock, I mean, how do you think Rangers will line up? And is it just a case of getting the 3 points on the board and starting the season with a win?
Ultimately, that's it, Euan. It just has to be a win. If they go down to Kelly and it's tight and it's a bit of a battle, which we expect it will be, it makes no difference. Rangers just need to come back up the road with 3 points. I think the summer and the way that the transfer window has unfolded, it's built a bit of optimism. It's built some excitement. There's a real key momentum about all the changes that have been made on the park and off the park as well. I think there's a fresher feel and a new emphasis just around about the whole club at present. A draw at Kelly or a defeat at Kelly would burst that bubble a wee bit. So it's really important that Rangers get off to a good start. Just win all the games heading into the Old Firm game, and then we can see where we are at that stage. It sounds so easy. Teams previously have shown that it can be. Other teams have shown that it can be a lot more difficult than that. But I think there's a bit of momentum. I know pre-season hasn't been great in terms of some of the results. Performances have been a bit mixed, to say the least. But I think that kind of overhaul, trying to bed that number of new players into a squad, into a team, is always going to be difficult. Even settling guys into life in Glasgow, and also some of them have been here a lot longer than others. It will take time. Time is obviously of the essence, and it's just something that you don't get at Rangers. But I think there has to be a wee bit of understanding about what the manager and what the players are trying to do. But that comes at the same time as winning games, and they're now coming thick and fast with the European campaign coming up as well. So it's an exciting time, and we'll head into it with a bit of optimism, and we'll see how long that optimism lasts. Slightly longer than last season, hopefully.
No, I certainly hope that's the case, Chris. Just going to you, Stevie, about the Kilmarnock game. I should mention that there's a piece on the website that I've done looking at Kieran Dowell and sort of his career to date and his impact that he's had at Rangers in terms of the pre-season games. Mark Warburton was spoken to for that piece, and also spoke to Lewis McLeod yesterday, just to get an insight from 2 people who have worked with him. Obviously, Mark worked with him at Nottingham Forest, and Lewis worked with him at Wigan. So that kind of gives insight from people who have worked with him, and also people who know Rangers and what the expectations are there. I'd start Kieran Dowell in midfield against Kilmarnock. I'd go with Raskin, Dowell, and Todd Cantwell as my midfield 3, with kind of Sam Lammers in the number 10. I've been quite impressed with Dowell so far. I think he's a good player. I think he could really he's at an age where he could really come into his fore at Rangers and kind of deliver on the potential. Made him so highly rated when he was a young player at Everton. Don't know if you agree with me, Stevie, but come on, what would be your starting team for Rugby Park on Saturday?
Well, first of all, I think the good news is that the window cleaner has finally got the hint after 4 rattles at the door that I'm not going to answer. So I think he's away and Ali's settled down again. But I actually spoke about what you boys were talking about just a minute ago in regards to winning and getting the result at Rugby Park. I actually spoke about that on my piece on the Rangers Review yesterday. The only thing that matters in the next couple of weeks is Rangers win. And that's the only thing. We can worry about the style and how these boys are performing and everything else that comes into it way after the international break. The most important thing for us is we get the points on the board in the league, try and get through Europe, which is going to be a real kind of difficult process. We know now it's the Swiss side Servette that we're playing next week and the week after. So we know where we are with that, and that obviously means a lot to the club. Just getting through that one tie gives us £5 million, and the parachute we know to Europa League is there anyway. But this one round, this one tie, and there's a £5 million parachute for us there. So that's mega for this club. It's really big money, and we need to try and make sure that happens. As for Saturday and Kilmarnock, you know which type you're going to get. You never ever go down to Rugby Park. I can't remember us going down there and playing well, even at our height under Gerrard and stuff, and ever kind of, giving them a good going over. It won't be like that. I'd take any sort of win at this moment in time. We'd like it to be nice. We'd like to go down there and win 3-0 and Danilo to bang in a couple and, the Brazilian flags to be out and everybody to have a Saturday evening jolly. But and the reality of it is the only thing that matters is the 3 points. So the team I would go with, obviously Butland starts. I think the back four, despite what we say, I think Goldson will play. I think it'll be Goldson and Suter. I think Tav will start at right back. And I think it'll be Yilmaz at left back. And I think it should be Yilmaz at left back. I said this the other day as well, that we have to give the boy a run. We need to play him for 10, 15 games before we really, really make any judgment and see where we are. It was just so typical that I kind of talked him up in the summer after a nervous kind of start, and then all of a sudden he kind of had a dip in pre-season. But we need to really give him a run and see how he can do. I think he fared all right in the league last season, so let's give him a run. Midfield, Ryan Jack, Todd Cantwell and Nico Raskin. Jack gets in for me just because I think Ryan Jack's such a vital player. And in a game like that, where you need control and you're bathing in so many new players, I would go for Ryan Jack. But equally, Kieran Dowell, I can see why you would say that. Left-sided adds a nice kind of, feel to it. An actually left-sided player, it's good balance. So, yeah, I mean, I get that point as well. Up front as well, Lammers, Dessers, Danilo. I'm starting Danilo every day of the week. I'm putting him straight in. If you can get 60 minutes out of him, then you can maybe swap it up. But see when he brought that touch when the ball went up in the air last week and he brought it down with that wee touch and away he went, that was enough for me to be sold and equally and instantly in love with this boy. So I think he's going to be hopefully the real deal, and I would get him in straight away. He starts, goal scorers, understand they need time to bed in and everything else, but ultimately at the end of the day, there's the goals, go and put it in it. You know what I mean? And it should be fairly straightforward with regards to instructions to him. So he's starting for me. And that would be how I would go about my team for Saturday. Ultimately, as we went right back to the start, give me any sort of win in 3 points and up the road, and I'll be quite happy.
Yeah, it's a good point. It'll be interesting to see if Danilo starts or Bill maybe keeps him on the bench as a kind of weapon to, if the game's not going in his favour, and maybe hold him for Servette. We'll come on to talk about the Champions League quickly, but I just wanted to kind of talk about this. I mean, the centre-back issue, Stevie would put Connor Goldson back in. I'm kind of tended towards agreeing with Stevie if he's. It all depends how fit he is. There's obviously kind of the plastic pitch factor as well, which comes into consideration. I think some players might not get risked on the plastic pitch, and that leads us to kind of this comment about John Suter. Can we risk Suter on the plastic pitch? I think you need to play him if he's fit and ready to go. Chris, I mean, what do you think on that? And Goldson as well.
If Goldson's fit, I think he plays. I'd be amazed if the manager sees Goldson being fit enough to play the game and then doesn't. And I'm sure if Michael was to ask Connor himself, do you want to play, he'll go and play. And that's just the type of the just type of guy that he is and type of player that he is. If he's okay, I think he plays. If Suter is okay, I think he plays. I think right now that's the two. I'd like to see another one come in. That's just I think there's a consensus on that centre back area and needs strength. But we have what we have. I think Coulson and Suter are the two to go for. I know John West has his fitness rate and injury record ahead of the Hoffenheim game last week. The only way he's going to stop people saying if or but when it comes to John Suter is by going and playing 20-25 games on the spin. If he plays 5 then breaks down again and misses 3 months, those questions are perfectly valid. Fresh season, fresh start. Give John Suter a run. I like him. I think he's got a lot of attributes. I think he can be a good centre half for Rangers. We're only going to find out if he's robust enough, if you actually give him the chance. Putting him in here, there, and everywhere is not going to stand him in the best. It's not give him the best chance of proving himself and really silencing those doubters and fans. So for me, Coulson and Suter are the two.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think will be the strongest centre-back pairing as it stands. And I think a lot of fans agree with you, Chris, and I think Stevie made the point earlier on. If they could have one more signing, it would be a kind of centre-back and probably one that can play in the left-hand side, because although Suter can play in the left-hand side, and obviously Ben Davies, that's his strongest side, Suter is naturally probably prefers playing the right as well. So you're looking at that kind of left centre-back position there. I think we should probably talk about, because it's coming around the corner next week, is the Champions League game last night. Obviously, Servette going through against Genk on penalties. Perhaps a little bit of a surprise. I didn't watch the game last night. Stevie, I don't know if you caught any of it, but just generally, I mean, what do you make of that? So it's obviously a massive game. You alluded to it earlier, the kind of £5 million jackpot if you win this tie over 2 legs. A trip to Switzerland for the fans, Rangers fans. That won't be a cheap trip by any means, but I'm sure they'll still travel in the numbers as always. Stevie, what's your kind of general consensus on it?
I would love to sit here and say I know everything about them and stuff like that, but I think people know me enough by now to say that I don't have the faintest idea what they're like and what they're going to be, what they're going to bring to us. But you've got an arrogant kind of side of you that thinks Rangers should be winning a tie like this, and you've got to factor everything in that comment where we're just rebuilding a completely new team and trying to bed it in. Put all that to the side. Nobody's going to care about that come next Wednesday night, the following week when these games start. We have to win it, and it's going to be difficult. They're going to be a well-organised outfit. To go down to 10 men after 2 minutes and still hold on and then manage to go through, I think speaks volumes that they're going to be at least a decent side, which you would expect at this level anyway. So I think that they'll be a tough outfit. But we've got to win these games. You want to be in the Champions League. You want to play the very best. You have to win these games. I'm of the opinion, that if you get by this one and then go into Europa League, then I don't think there's too many people disappointed with that. When you see what happened to us last year, Champions League and stuff, it's vitally important we get through this leg financially at the very least to get that parachute down into Europa League. It's very vital. When you look at last season, Union Saint-Gilloise, I think we had at this point, we went over to Belgium and turned in an absolute stinker. It was 2-0 going on, a lot more, and it was really bad. And then we turned them over at Ibrox. So we've got to make a home night count. I don't know about anybody else, but I am desperately looking forward to Ibrox European night. It'll be loud, it'll be passionate, and I think we've been building up. I think there's a lot of excitement and suspense around this team this year. And I think the bottom line is Rangers fans are just dying to have something to cheer. We're dying to have something to look forward to. As Chris said, the season petered out so quickly. It was basically it was over more or less by September time. End of September, we were looking at, 9 points behind and all this stuff. I think we're all looking forward to this season, at least challenging and putting a run together and stuff like that. And that's what we all want. We want these games at Ibrox to mean something. And next Wednesday is certainly going to do that. I'm really looking forward to that. It should be loud. It should be passionate. So it's a tie that we have to win. We have to win that game for various and obvious reasons. So hopefully Chris can tell you a bit more about what they're like and what sort of side they are. I certainly can't. You know, previous me would have looked forward to at least getting some Toblerone on my trip, but those days are behind me now, Euan. So I'm sure the Bears will travel in number and they'll have a great time. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's someone said in the comments here it's £15 a pint. So I think Josh might be heading over to Switzerland. So not me. So my bank balance will take a bit. Won't take a bit of a hit this week. I seen you smiling there, Chris. I think Steve might put you on the spot a little bit about Servetti, but I'm sure you'll do a little bit of information, a little bit of digging on them in the coming days. But I mean, what's your kind of general consensus on them?
I don't want to give away all the secrets and give away all my inside knowledge on the Swiss side first thing in the morning. So I'll keep all my knowledge tucked away for a rainy day. I'll pass it on to Stevie later on, so he's better informed next time he's on one of these shows.
Yeah, I'll be honest as well. I don't know too much about them. I'm just back from a holiday, so that's my excuse. But I think Joshua did. I was in the office with Joshua yesterday. He left the office to go and watch the game. So Joshua will have something coming out on them ahead of the game on Wednesday. So stay tuned to the Rangers review.
We've done well this morning. We've had a joiner, a window cleaner. Chris's family walked in the back seat. We asked about the big Champions League game. Nobody knows anything about the team we're playing. So well done, lads. We've knocked this out of the park.
I'll also add, I sit right by my front window, and every time the postman comes, he looks at me to let him in. When I'm doing one of these live videos, I'm like, I can't just go up and answer the door, mate. And he fumes at me, and it's like, you must hate me by this time. I think sometimes I might get something else put through my letterbox in the coming days. But guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. There's been incredible amounts of comments today, and the amount of people who are live on the show shows the excitement ahead of the new season. Just remember, it's the last day that you can get our special offer on the Rangers review. £12 for 12 months, incredible value, if I must say so myself. So if you want to read all the kind of in-depth pieces that we have on the website, all the kind of transfer latest from the likes of Chris, myself, Joshua and Derek and Stevie and all our contributors, it's the last day to get that, so I would highly recommend it. There's going to be loads of content.
Can I just say on that as well, if you use my code Clifford10, you can get an extra 10% off. So you're basically getting the year for just over a tenner. So it's incredibly good value. And, if you're thinking about signing up, I think this is the best time to do it. I don't think you'll get value like this on any other deal. So the wee 10% there will help take a wee quid or two off that as well. So worth having a look at.
I'm not going to ask if you get any commission there, Stevie. I'll just leave that for another day. But
if you're good, you don't do things for free. You know what I mean? So.
No, that's a good point. There's going to be loads of content coming over the coming days, obviously leading up to Rugby Park, and Joshua will be down there. I'm sure Chris will be there as well at the weekend. So stay tuned to everyone on social media, and thanks very much for everyone who's been on today. I think I'm back with you, Stevie, tomorrow. So we'll look forward to that, and have a safe day, guys. See you later.